What's up? What's up? What's up? Oh, hold on. Testing, testing. 1, 2. Okay. Looks like we're back. I was trying to get on my 4K, but that wasn't going to happen. So back earlier. Got some hat hair. I need a haircut. I need a haircut. It's very David Lynchian. Hi. Yeah, we were talking earlier about the 20s, the 30s. I can't with this hair. This is just, that's all right. Going back on. So before we were talking about 20s and 30s. We didn't get into the 40s, which is interesting because this is going to be non-anecdotal, or like anecdotal, but not like personally anecdotal. So your 40s, so 30s, we're reconciling. Okay, we're reconciling. We're reconciling with our 20s. We're reconciling with our childhood. We're trying to figure out where it all started, the big whys. Okay, the big whys. And we're also, what's cool about your 20s is you're discovering a lot about your own personal capacity for healing, or your curiosities, or where you're also like naturally good at things. Okay, so where are your natural interests? Where are you naturally being pulled towards? Which is, and this is going to sound a little judgy, but this is why getting in committed relationships really early on, if they're not 100% supportive and open and free and cultivating growth, can really set you back. They can really set you back because you're going to kind of limit yourself in some way, shape, or form in order to make sure that you're ultimately not completely distressing the relationship that you're in. I see this a lot with people who, they get in committed relationships. They feel bad for wanting to change, or also I see the opposite of people who like just don't settle down and are like, what's wrong with me? Nothing, boo. Nothing. Nothing is wrong with you. Everyone has their own path. Everyone has their own path. And we just have to be accepting of that. That doesn't mean they have to all be allowed within your circle of trust. We can say trust, but they don't have to be in your intimate circle of everything. You are allowed to have boundaries. You are allowed to have boundaries. You are allowed to explore without self-judgment. And here's where we kind of go into the different modalities that are out there in terms of how we find healing within ourselves. We can either find it through, we can find it through therapy. We can find it through reading. We can find it through these sorts of things. These are kind of artifacts or tools. But then there's the how, right? How are we unpacking? Those are some artifacts. Now some vehicles. The vehicles are like, if it's religion, if it's spiritual, esoteric, and even though I said therapy is a tool, I wouldn't necessarily consider it a specific modality because there's a lot of different kinds of therapists out there. Although they all have one objective in mind, which is to ultimately help you sort of unpack the psyche and be able to see parts of yourself that you couldn't see before. Okay. I tell a lot of people this story when it comes to therapy, and I'm like, I've always been a proponent of therapy, and I have a lot of clients who have therapists, and I'm like their catch-all. And they kind of like spill the tea to me and we unpack together because there's no like, you know, there's no, I don't have to do all this stuff for some medical insurance company. I get to do my own thing and we get to play. We get to do all the fun stuff when it comes to self-development. With that being said, my real breakthrough with therapy came when I was in college. I was finishing up. Had I already had my baby? I'm not sure if I already had my baby. I might have already had my baby. I think I was in my last semester of college and getting my finance degree. And I was like, I have got to go to therapy. And I was like, oh my God, there's free therapy services on campus. That's amazing. Campus. It was like Suffolk University in Boston. It was like, um, is not a campus. It's just within a zip code and within an area of downtown Boston. But they did provide free services, especially for practicing like student therapists who were getting their license. So I was seeing somebody and it was amazing. I was like, this is so cool. But more primarily, this is why I thought it was cool. He said to me one day, he said, do you know that whenever I ask you a question about your childhood or about anything that has to do within your family experience or your own childhood experiences, you have a tendency to say we. You never say I. And I was like, eh? It's like, what are you talking about? I was like, I do not use the royal we. And he goes, no, no, no. He's like, you speak we as in us, the children. I said, you never say my experience. This is how it was for me. I felt this way. I said, you always use the we, and you always speak in a very narrative format. I was like, wow, that is amazing. I was like, that is so cool. Wow. Okay. So, with that being said, what can we do with that, right? Therapists want you to talk so that they can then help you connect the dots, so that you can then see, right, your blind spots, essentially, which is really cool. It's amazing. And there's different kind of therapists have different kinds of approaches. Very cool. Now, what does that mean in the role of self-development, self-discovery? Well, I'll say this. It is a resource. It is a resource. Ultimately, what you want is to create explorations and avenues where you can cultivate non-judgmental opportunities for learning about yourself. Okay? About yourself. So, what does that mean? That means that when we allow, it's kind of like online dating. It's kind of like online dating. It's a numbers game, okay, Ho? It's a numbers game. And by the way, I don't think ho is a bad term. Like, I embrace my personal wholeness. I hope you all embrace your personal wholeness. Self-empowerment. So when we maximize on our resources, okay, and we create exposure that ultimately allows us to see different sides of the same mountain, okay? see different sides of the same mountain, then we are maximizing our opportunities for success with breakthroughs, right? These are our KPIs. Breakthroughs, impact of breakthroughs, and aftermath, right? So, what do we do after we experience a breakthrough? There's, there's a lot of different phases and all that, but you are ultimately going to have a higher rate of success if you're open and willing to see different sides of yourself, yo mountain, so to speak. Speaking of different sides, there's a great book called No Bad Parts. And it talks about IFS, internal family systems, which you might think, wow, family. No, it's not about biological family. It's about internal family systems as it relates to the different parts within inside you. And essentially, that all parts of you are valid, are important, are trying to help you survive, and that there are no bad parts of you, even though we have a tendency to feel like that's an icky part of me. That's an acceptable part of me. This is the good version. That's the bad version, right? We have this tendency to do such things. Okay, sounds good. Great. With that being said, we want to ultimately accept ourselves, which goes back to kind of part one of the live from today, which is all parts of you, little you, mid you, raw decision making you, right? All of you exists, is important. And we didn't talk about our 40s, and I'm about to go to my 40s, but from what I hear, from what I hear, and from what I've learned, what you have not healed in your 30s will only get worse in your 40s. That has been the resounding message that I have received. If whatever you do not heal in your 30s will only get worse in your 40s, right? And you have choices, you have options, right? We can feel in your 40s, you can things will get worse, and you will either become resolve, right? You'll want to go backwards, actively go backwards, almost as an act of like reversing the clock. Maybe, and this is absolutely zero judgment on plastic surgery, getting sports cars, and dating younger people who are legal. Preferably not younger than your kids, please. Please. No judgment, right? All on our own path. So we want to ultimately address what we didn't address in our 30s about our 20s and our non-autonomic autonomic years. Autonomic? Autonomous. Hey, words. Autonomous years, our non-autonomous years. So question is, what do we do with that? What do we do with that? I feel like in my own personal experience, I've been in a mad dash to heal all that I can. Before getting to my 40s, it wasn't intentional, but it's definitely been a mad dash. I think a lot of this comes from being a mom. I find my experience of being a mom, it was, I feel like I was definitely, I was a young mom, and I had my son at 21, and I was a single parent for 10 years. But I was really good at it. I was really good at being a single parent. I was struggling a lot, and I really wanted to succeed. And wherever I went, I did succeed, and I only further climbed the ladder. But then when I got married and I had more kids, Um, that process has been a process, you know? Um, and I've had to understand what that means for me and ultimately what my value is. I think that it's as someone who is so non-conformative, to find myself in such a conformative place is certainly it's jarring. It's jarring. Doesn't mean I don't appreciate my life and I don't love my kids. Obviously, I love my kids. And I love my husband and I'm incredibly blessed. Um, but I'm not I'm not making as much as I used to. I don't have as much time for myself as I used to. These are things that I have had to come to terms with, so to speak, all on top of, healing from burnout, which was, very complex, very long process. And while attempting to do something of value, raise babies, take care of babies, be a default parent. And I still make really good money with my business and I help people. But then the question is, who am I? Right? There's always that question of who am I? And when we experience triggers, and why do we have those triggers? And what is lying dormant beneath our skin? Right? What is creating unresolved in our body? We have to pay attention to that. Um, talking about the female experience as caretakers is, God, it's borderline cliche at this point. I mean, like, it cliche in a very but very real, very real way. So very important to give yourself time in that process, whatever process that you're in, to give yourself time and to realize that there are lots of parts of us. There's lots of parts of me. And even though I am very passionate about helping people and find myself just totally zoned in a completely different world and aligned and on and present and whew, just feeling my life's purpose when I'm supporting others and I'm in session or holding workshops or whatever, I'm feeling incredibly great. You know, After that, I still have things that I have to unpack. And I think that that's the reality of also what we're seeing just in pop culture, in social media, is realizing that we're more often than not, we're pretty imperfect beings. We're pretty imperfect beings. But the question is, what do we do with those imperfections? What do we do with those imperfections? I don't know. I don't know. If I had to guess, if I had to guess, I would say accept them, learn, grow, all of that so that we can achieve um, the act of reaching out and touching the thing that brings us joy so that we can continue to find ourselves in that cycle. A little dirty. So that we can find fulfillment, right? So we can find fulfillment and we can connect with others. We'd love that, right? We'd love that. So there you go. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go. That was my ramblings for today. We'll be back tomorrow because I'm trying to do this on a regular schmegular basis. We'll do some card readings. I see somebody's on. If you want a card reading, just let me know. We do tarot, oracle, or if you want to just unpack what's going on, we can do that too. Oh, they left. Okay, bye. See you later. Let's do a card for today. as it serves our highest and greatest good. Please and thank you. Okay. Oh, love it. This is one of my favorite cards. Death. Look how pretty she is. Look at that. But what is death? Death is also the act of being reborn. Right? Death is also the act of being reborn. Through death, through the emptying, right? Through the emptying of whatever it is, either the soul, the mental, the heart, we can then bring in and introduce new concepts, a new sense of self. It is only through death that there can be rebirth. Okay? New beginnings. Be kind to yourself. We also pulled a card yesterday for the week, and it was all about being kind to yourself. All about being kind to yourself. Okay? This week is all about being kind to yourself. Dang it. All right, so now we're going to do a lesson card theme for today. As it serves our highest and greatest good, please and thank you. Thank you, thank you. To keep in mind, to grow into, to expand on as it serves our highest and greatest good, please and thank you. Oh, self-esteem. I possess gifts of the soul that benefit me and others. I love that. I possess gifts of the soul that benefit me and others. That's very powerful. That's very powerful. So death, right, might be part of your self-doubt, right? Allowing self-doubt to die, at least transform something, right? To at least mutate into some form of self-esteem, realizing that you are important, okay? And that's why we're here. We're here to help ourselves, okay? Help yourself. Help yourself. Help yourself. And by helping ourselves, we help others. Incredibly, incredibly important, right? We're all in this together. And while so interesting, the human experience is, that talked about the hero's journey, the heroine's journey, right? The healing journey, all this, it's very, very human. And yet it's all incredibly unique to ourselves. And we are the only ones. We are the only ones that can support ourselves in that process. To know, we must always default to ourself when it comes to choosing. Okay? You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to create boundaries. That's it. All right? I love you. You're amazing. You're awesome. You are already perfect. And you got this. All right? Talk later. Bye.